Hello snowboarders of the internet, I am your host TC and today I will be reviewing the Cleaver. I rode this binding at Copper Mountain where it was a beautiful sunny day, nice and warm. It was nice and slushy in the sun. Once you got into that shaded area or in the trees, it did get pretty firm and even icy in spots, but as the day wore on, it just kept getting softer and softer. But the snow stayed pretty fast most of the day. I used my Ride Fuse boots and I put it on my Jones Aviator 2.0. So when we're talking adjustability on this binding, there is loads of it, probably the most on the market, I would say. If we're starting from the top and working our way down, you do have a Highback or forward lean adjuster on it, just easy flip tab, flip it, set it down, flip it back, all good to go. And then also to go along with that, you can adjust where this Highback actually sits, if it cants toward in or just ride straight up with these screws on the outside here. This will also adjust if you want it to be in line with your heel side edge, which you don't need to, but you know, some people are weird like that. But when you want to get that canting on the Highback, you just take these screws out, flip them over, and you could either have a 0, 3 degree, or a 6 degree cant on it. And then pretty much when we get to the straps here for adjustability, you have flip tabs on both the ankle and the toe, and then you can actually adjust the height of this strap as well by these little pivot mounts. If you loosen them and push them more down, you'll have more instep pressure, or if you lift them up, you'll have more ankle pressure there. And then to go along with that, you can actually move the toe strap as well to get that a little more centered over the toe or on top of the toe, and it's just on an easy push pin system where you can just push it down, slide it back, pull it back up, and you're all set there. Then you can also move this heel cup by these two screws, one on the outside here, one on the inside, and then you'll have these two screws underneath as well. And you're gonna wanna move that heel cup before you mount this binding, otherwise it's really not going to move for you just because of these bottom screws. The Cleaver is equipped with Rome's patented Oxtec technology straps. So what that means is it is gonna be a molded strap, but as this thing stretches, it's gonna get stronger. It's gonna get pretty much more responsive on your foot. So that being a molded strap, it's not gonna provide a bunch of padding or anything like that. All that padding is gonna come from your boot. But that being said, since it is so big, it really disperses all of those pressure points really well. And since you do have these pivot mounts, you can get that thing perfectly centered so you're not getting any instep pressure or anything like that. When it comes to the response of these things, you just feel super locked in where you don't have a lot of lateral play to it or anything like that. All of that toe and heel movement is going to go straight to the board and you're not going to be wasting energy with these. Now when it comes to putting the toe strap on, you could either rock it over the toe or on top of the toe. I rocked it over the toe just because this thing fits any boot extremely well, where it just molded around my square toe box. Even though it looks like it's going to fit a rounder boot, this goes crazy and will just pretty much fit any boot there is. These bindings are just equipped with, I would say, the standard Rome ratchet, which I honestly believe is the standard for the industry, or should be the standard, because really there's no play side to side in these. They're super easy to grip. The one thing I will say is with them coupled with the Oxtec, when you really ratchet this thing down, it just locks in. So it does take a little more to pop them off, but honestly, that isn't a problem for me. I would rather have that than if I'm going for a grab or something and like just tap this, it's not gonna release on me. So they're super solid, really easy to grip with mittens on, even big poofy ones. I had no problem getting in and out of these things, and they didn't tear up the strap or tear up the ladders like anything, and they do come with extra ladders. So if you do end up getting it a little torn up, it's not going to be a big problem at all. Make sure you like, subscribe, click that bell, and turn on those notifications so you're not missing any of the reviews or any of the programming we have coming out. This Highback is going to be nice and responsive and match up really well with the rest of the binding where you feel locked in with it. You're not getting a lot of lateral play with it. As you can tell when I go to flex this thing, it doesn't really want to flex too much. And then you can actually adjust this Highback to get it in line with your leg or even out of line with your leg, which I have no idea why you would do that, but you can. It is that adjustable. You can also align this Highback with the heel side edge and try to get a little bit more response if you think that would help, but honestly, most bindings are already designed to just be ridden the way they're set up, so you don't have to do that anymore. But overall, very locked in high back where you're not getting a lot of lateral play there, and that toe to heel response is gonna be pretty much there with you, where I didn't feel this high back, but I knew it was there, if that makes any sense to you. The only flex this binding is gonna do is pretty much underneath it, where you're not getting a lot of lateral play or any of that flex, since you are on a metal chassis and a full chassis or a full wrapped chassis. It's not allowing all of that lateral movement or anything like that. It will allow your board to flex underneath you so you don't get any dead spots or anything, but it's just more of a locked in feeling than anything else. You do get some flex on the high back when you're going to tweak grabs, that sort of thing, but it really wants to return back to its original version, or original form, I should say. Same with the straps. You do get some lateral flex to them, but for the most part, it just wants to keep you locked in, almost like vice grips on your feet there. This binding rides like I would imagine a sports car is, where you're just locked into this thing. Once you're in this binding, it feels like you're in a racing bucket seat where there is really no movement side to side. It's just you and the binding locked into that board there, where they're nice and damp. They cut down on a lot of chatter because of, I mean, look at all this foam on the bottom and then right under your foot as well. You do feel some of the cord, but all those icy spots and everything, it just absorbs that, where you're not really feeling any of that. And you're like, oh, were the conditions really that bad? But turns out they were, and you just didn't notice because of how good the suspension is on this binding. Rider in mind. This binding is designed for that hard charger that really wants to push their limits on the mountain, and they also need quite a bit of adjustability to it just to get their setup perfectly dialed so they don't have to worry about it out there. While I have you here, you might as well head on over to Angry Snowboarder VIP. Sure, I could explain what's going on over there, but we have a great video getting into it really in depth. I like this binding. It definitely felt like super responsive, locked in. Like if I'm riding an aggressive board or super technical terrain, this is the binding I would want. I mean, Avran's ridden Rome bindings for like 10 plus years. Like, he can't be wrong. Well, he can be, but not in this case, I would say. I was definitely skeptical with all of the moving parts on it, but they really didn't loosen up. And I would just say keep an eye on them, especially after you have like a week or so on them. They might start loosening up on you, so just keep that in mind. And I always say before you go out and ride, tighten your shit down, just because I've seen so many horror stories of people getting to the top and they're missing an ankle strap. So overall, a great binding. Just make sure you keep everything tight and it'll just do you just fine. Comparable bindings: the Bataleon Astro Full Wrap, the Jones Apollo, and the Ride A10. This has been my review of the Rome Cleaver. If you enjoyed it but you still need to do a little bit more research, I'd recommend checking out one of the videos for our comparable bindings.